This is a very happy moment, I would say, because it's like the first face-to-face Dharma activity run by Ajahn in Hong Kong, like publicly, after like the 3 years of COVID. And I think people like me would need some kind of introduction, but not speakers like Ajahn. So, so I think I won't wish to take too much time here, and please give a warm welcome to Ajahn with a big round of applause. So, Ajahn, please begin.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me okay? Excellent. So again, welcome. It's nice to see many familiar faces. Even though I'm getting old, I still have a good memory. And anyway, I've also had some very happy experiences here in Hong Kong over the years. And it's a great joy to be able to share, some of the reasons why I never got COVID. I was disappointed I never got COVID. Some of my monks got COVID, and they managed to do a retreat called quarantine. Unfortunately, it's weird, but I do have excellent health, and sometimes I wonder why. This is my 72nd year. I was born in the year of the rabbit, so 1951, so I'm getting on in my years, but nevertheless, the only last time I got sick was almost 33 years ago, which was weird. And if you don't know that story, for one reason or another, I felt very tired, no energy. And one of my followers over in Perth was a doctor, and he said, I'm not quite sure what's wrong with you, but because he was a consultant in one of the hospitals there, he said, I'll invite you into the hospital for 6 or 7 days and do some tests to see what happens. That's what people do in hospitals and universities as well, it seems. These exams going on downstairs. But the problem was, I had a number of problems being a monk going into a hospital. And one of the first problems was, when I went to the check-in counter, they said, where are your pajamas? And I said, I'm a monk. I don't have pajamas. You can either have these robes or naked. Take your choice. I actually said that. And they said, okay, we'll take your robes. That'll be fine enough. But then when they put me in the bed, there was a man's ward, 3 other men in the ward, which was fine. But the problem was that the doctor I was under, he was a follower, a Sri Lankan man, very brilliant. His speciality, he was a gynecologist. So they had my name there, Ajahn Brahm, under Dr. Mendes, gynecologist. And I got a lot of weird looks and questions from the nurses. You're wearing strange robes, you've got a bald head, you're not wearing pajamas, are you in the right ward? But it was all very nice. Just having a little bit of rest was all I needed, and a bit of quietness. And I often wondered how much illness is caused by people being too tired, being stressed out, and not knowing how to relax. One of the things which we'll teach here during the meditation is how to relax the body and how to relax the mind. I think those of you who have a good memory will know that many years ago I coined the term relax to the max. And the most important term is to the max. So when you lay in your bed at night, It's the most comfortable place you can possibly ever lay down. It's nice and warm, it's calm. Do you know how to fall asleep? Many people keep worrying and they keep thinking. And because of the worries and the thoughts, they never have a good night's sleep. And because of that, that tiredness creates a stress in the mind, which makes you more agitated no matter what you do. Again, I was interested to see all of the students. They're doing an exam this morning here in this university. And I still recall how I passed my examinations when I was a student at Cambridge. You know, the problem was that my friends, my family, and everybody else, they were all telling me how important those examinations were. And I tell people now, if only I had known I was going to spend my life as a monk, I would not have worried about those examinations. But nevertheless, it was supposed to be really, really, really important. But by that time, I had already learned how to be mindful and kindful and how to relax. And when I saw those kids outside the room down below waiting for the examination, if I could speak better Cantonese, I would have just sat down and told them how to relax to the max, to prepare your mind so you can pass those exams with ease. This is an important story because it shows both the method and the results of what happens when you are kindful. So this, my speciality of those days, it was theoretical physics. So you'd have a series of exams, a 3-hour paper in the morning, 1 hour for lunch, 3 hours in the afternoon, for 6 days straight. That was highly stressful. And anyway, what I did, by that time I knew how to meditate. So what I did after the morning examination, when I went back to my room, supposed to be for lunch, but I never had any lunch. I was a lay person then, so I had a big breakfast and I would have a big dinner in the evening. I did without lunch. What I did in that period between the exams, between the morning exam and the afternoon exam, was to go to my room, put out a cushion and sit quietly. And I remember every lunch hour what happened. When I closed my eyes, the first thing which came into my head is involuntary. It just came into my head. How did I do in the morning examination? Did I answer the questions right? Oh my goodness, I think I made a mistake there. Oh my goodness, what should I do? I started worrying about the past. And of course, you all know, it's very clear, with an examination, the paper is already submitted. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter, you can't change it. What a waste of time that was about worrying about it. And even when you think about your past, whatever you did, good, bad, or somewhere in between, you cannot change it now. So why worry about it? I know that some people say you can learn from the past. You don't. You learn from the present moment, not the past. So anyway, because I had practiced my mindfulness for about 2 or 3 years by that time, I knew how to sit there and let go of the morning examination. You know what came into my mind next? The afternoon exam, coming up in about half an hour. Should I go and do some more revision? But something I've seen and something which I teach and advise, whatever you revise or read half an hour before the exam never comes up in the paper. At least never for me. It was a total waste of time. So I let go of worrying about the exam which was coming up in half an hour. And instead, I did realize what I needed to do was to rest in this present moment, to be here. And what I noticed next, again, surprised me. Do I ever look like a nervous monk? I come up in front of you. I don't really plan what I'm going to say. I'm not sure what's going to come out of my mouth next. Sometimes you even go on live TV and you don't know what's going to happen next. Except I do hear that if you do something stupid on live TV, like you put your finger in your ear or something, that's what goes on the live TV. Because people like to see well-known people doing stupid things. So anyway, many people get nervous when they're giving public talks, or when they're going on TV, or when they're... These days the internet is a bit easier, because you can always delete something. But for this, you're live, and if you make a mistake, everybody hears about it, or sees it. But these days, you see, I don't really worry about anything. You know, one of the reasons why I enjoy your company, I trust each one of you. I've known you for such a long time, some of you. In fact, I've known some of you for such a long time, it makes me feel old. It's true. You know, sometimes I've known these followers since they were, really small. Came to my Dhamma class in Perth when they were only about 6 or 7 years of age. And now they've got grandchildren. I wish they wouldn't tell me that. So when you have grandchildren, please don't let me know. Makes you feel ancient. But nevertheless, so I never felt that I was a nervous person. But once I was meditating and let go of past and future and came into this present moment, what I discovered, I was actually shaking. This was final examinations. My whole career at university depended upon this. Everything else you did in those days counted for zip, zero, nil. Everything was down to these 6 days. So the pressure was on you, and so I was shaking. I never realized how tense my body was. And that's one of the reasons why people do get sick. They don't realize how much they're holding their body so stiffly. It reminded me, this is not supposed to be translated, is it? This talk? No, good, okay. Okay, poor Freddie usually does the translations. So anyway, there was a story about a psychiatrist, and this man went to see him, and what's your problem, sir? He said, sometimes I'm convinced, I'm sure I'm a marquee. You know what a marquee is? If they have these big events, it's this big tent they use to serve people in the gardens. Other times, I think I'm a teepee. And a teepee is where indigenous Americans used to live. Sometimes I think I'm a teepee, sometimes I think I'm a marquee. And the psychiatrist said, I know your problem. Your problem is very common these days. You're too tense. That's a joke. A tent. A marquee tent. A teepee tent. Okay, some people got that joke. Okay, I'll try another joke to warm you up. about the woman. I don't know if you have this trouble, those of you who have kids, how hard it is to get them out of bed in the morning to go to school. This woman in Australia, she went into her son's bedroom. "Son, get up, it's time to go to school." And the son said, "Mummy, I don't want to go to school." "Son, you have to go to school." "But I don't like school, Mummy. The teachers don't like me. The students don't like me. No one likes me in school. But you have to go to school, son." "Give me one good reason why, Mummy." "Because you're the principal." Okay, I think that was easier to understand. Thank you. Anyway, so there I was, sort of shaking. When you're aware that your body is doing extravagant things like shaking, it's very easy to feel your body and to relax it. The first part of being able to have some sort of control over your body is learning how to be aware of it first of all. And many times people are so unaware of their body. I'm going to come back to the story of the exam method to succeed, but there was one of the monks in my monastery, I call it my monastery, that's where I live, over in Perth, who had a lot of pain whenever he sat on the floor to meditate. And so, we sent him to a doctor. He had a CT scan of his back, and the doctor gave him the explanation: he's got a congenital deformity in his spine, and they cannot operate on it. He said, "We can't do anything. You just have to don't sit down so long. Basically, don't meditate." But I'm a monk. That's like telling a chef not to cook. So he gave up on that particular doctor, and he found this wonderful method on how to solve the problem. What it was he read in a book that on either side of your spine there are muscles which you don't even recognize exist because you don't have to. So much of your body is on like automatic pilot. You don't know just how your kidney works. You can't feel it and say, "Come on, kidney, work harder," or "Kidney, take a rest." So much of this is just automatic. So in this particular book, the author said, here is where those muscles are on either side of your spine. First of all, learn how to be mindful of them. How can you be mindful of these things? And the advice said, every morning for 15 minutes, take one hand and rub that area of your back where those muscles are, 15 minutes, and then the other side of your spine for another 15 minutes every day. And he did that for 2 or 3 months, just to create the neural connection between his brain and those muscles, so he could feel them. So after 3 months, he could actually experience the sensations in those muscles, in the same way you can experience the sensations in your hand. Once that awareness had been created, now learn how to move those muscles, just like you move your arm up and down. How do you do that? Do some trial and error. Just like a kid learns how to walk, or a child learns how to use their hands. When you have mindfulness, you also have the feedback which mindfulness brings you. You know what's happening over there. And then you notice how to move that muscle. And he said, do that for 3 months, learn how to move those muscles. And once you can start moving those muscles, every morning for 15 minutes either side, exercise those muscles. And once you've exercised those muscles, they will have a strength which ordinary people just don't have. And that's what he did, and those muscles became so strong they perfectly compensated for the weakness and defects in the bones of his spine, and the pain was gone. And I thought that was a beautiful story, which I saw in this monk, of how he could overcome that deformity just using mindfulness, and how it brings you more in touch with your body. So for him, he could exercise things which most of us are totally unaware of. And I'm sure that's how I can manage to be in really good health, not because I exercise. The only thing I ever exercise, more than most people, is this. I talk a lot. But that is to be expected when you get old. I've seen this with many elderly people, and if you've got grandparents or great-grandparents, I'm sure you say this is absolutely true. When you get old, sometimes your legs are not as fit and supple as they were when you were young. Sometimes your arms are weak, or sometimes they shake. Sometimes that your hearing goes, or your eyes, you have to wear spectacles. But there is one part of an old person's body which gets stronger every year. And what is that? Mouth. Old people may not be able to hear well, but my goodness, they can talk. So that's why old monks usually can speak all day. And once they're finished in the afternoon, they can give another talk at night time. That's my program today. But anyway, once we developed that mindfulness, so I could feel my body shaking, and I could just learn how to relax it. And learning how to relax your own body is a wonderful skill. Yes, you can learn how to stretch and exercise muscles to make them stronger, but learn how to relax. It's so rare to see a person who knows how to relax well. Can you relax well? If you could, when you go to bed tonight, you lay down, just relax. You go fast asleep really quickly. Do you have enough time to sleep at night? You have to get up early in the morning? What a wonderful gift that would be, just to sleep efficiently, to learn how to relax to the max. So anyway, once I learned how to relax my body, the next thing which I noticed in this meditation as a 20-year-old was that my brain was exhausted. It's something else which people don't realize, how tired you are in your brain. All the things which you have to think about, solutions which you have to find, problems which you have to solve, are huge. I'm not quite sure what job many of you do. The fact you are here today means you're either running your own business and so you can take a day off, or you're out of work or something. It's hard to find a holiday, isn't it? But anyway, because we work so hard and the work is so competitive, you can imagine just how tired people's brains actually are. And for me at that time, just a 3-hour exam in quantum physics or something, that was enough to totally take all the energy out of your brain. I did give it everything I got in the morning exam. Problem was, I had another exam in the afternoon. So I was tired, exhausted. But then once you can watch and be aware of the exhaustion in your own brain, it's not that hard to recharge it, to give it lots of energy. basically you learn how to be still. And in that stillness, that's where the energy comes back to you. And I've used that throughout my whole life as a monk. It's not that I don't get tired sometimes. Sometimes I get exhausted. If I go outside to take a break. This was a famous story. Happened in one of the Hong Kong polytechnics. I forget exactly where. It was a big hall here, and I gave a talk. And after the talk, questions and answers. And after the questions, any more questions? I said, no, that's the last question. So I thought I could be free now and go to the toilet. I'm a monk, but I'm also a man. I need to go to the toilet as well. But they wouldn't let me go because there was a queue of people that wanted personal advice. And so, from the stage, I had to go to the back of the hall and out where the toilets were. And that's right, remember that, Hong Kong Polytechnic somewhere? Anyway, it took me about 45 minutes to get from the stage to the front because people were waiting. Can I have a photograph? Ajahn Brahm, can I please just ask you about my meditation? Ajahn Brahm, look, I'm having difficulties, in my business. Can you give me some advice? I don't do business. But anyway, I want to do some business, but the business was in the toilet. So anyway, it took me that long, and finally, I'm a very restrained monk. People didn't actually guess that I was busting to go to the toilet, and finally I got into the toilet, the gentleman's toilet. And there was this young man who just finished washing his hands. Ajahn Brahm, can I ask you a question on my meditation? And I was in the men's toilet. So anyway, it gave me a nice story to talk about later on. But nevertheless, that when you are very busy, if I get into that toilet, sometimes I sit there a little bit of an extra time. I don't need to sit there any longer. I've done my business. But one of the reasons I sit there, because especially in the United States, this is one part of United States culture which is far above the rest of the world. The name which they give their toilets. Rest room. I don't know where they got that name from, but I hope they don't change it. That's one place, if I'm really busy, I can go and just get a rest. Sometimes I call it in Australia not a restroom, not a toilet, a letting go room. And that's really accurate. That's what you do there. You let go. And even that, I'm not being gross. If you do go to the toilet, if you're stressed out, you can't let go. That is not the way to treat your body. Try and force whatever's inside of it to come out. You get sick. So, at least as a monk, I notice how to relax to the max and just let go. It's much easier. So anyhow, I don't know if there's any chairs. We have a chair here. I can give up my chair for you, but you'd have to give the talk. No. Anyway, so what I do notice, if you do take a rest, find some peace, you do find, find some there. If you do take a rest, you don't do anything, you have some stillness, you find that the energy of your mind increases, your brain recharges. And again, I have used that many times. When I'm exhausted, because I've been talking too much or traveling too much, what I learn how to do is to find a quiet place, sit down, close my eyes, and allow my mind to recharge. And it's amazing what it can do. If you think I do a lot in my life, 72-year-old now, shouldn't I retire now? What's the retirement age in Singapore? Oh, not Singapore, in Hong Kong, sorry. I get into trouble. What's the retirement age here? And I'm 72. Okay, bye-bye. But I don't really need to retire, simply because when I am exhausted, you know how to close your eyes and let the mind relax. The brain becomes still and all the energy comes back again. It's one of the reasons why that after that half an hour meditation, every lunchtime when I was doing those final examinations, after the meditation, I didn't look at any books, I didn't have anything to eat, but I went back into that examination hall. I never realized this. My friends told me afterwards. I was the only student who went into the afternoon examinations with a big smile on my face. My friends thought I was cheating. They were half right. I was doing something which no one else knew how to do, how to calm my mind down. But it really worked. That's why, I got through those examinations easily. But the point was, this was teaching me about how to meditate, how to have kindfulness, and how to improve the mental and physical efficiency of your life. How to let go of the past, let go of the future, be in this moment, be still, be confident, and allow energies to come back to you. And that's one thing about the day of kindfulness. You know that we didn't mention it as mindfulness, but as kindfulness. Because these days that mindfulness is talked about a lot without people understanding what it really means. It's just become a commodity now, which is for sale. But of course, Buddhism, we started this mindfulness business 2,500 years ago, and there's much more to it than is taught in most places. And part of that is that the power of mindfulness. Even somebody who's drunk has enough mindfulness, they can find their way home. How they ever do that is weird. They don't know who they are, where they are, but they always manage to get back to their room somehow or other. So they've got a little bit of awareness. Many people are mindful enough to be able to drive their car and listen to their mobile phone and talk to their partner in the passenger seat. They're not supposed to do that, but they do that. So mindfulness, awareness, is a common phenomenon. However, there's two things about mindfulness which people do not emphasize. Please come in. One of them is about what you are mindful of, what you are focusing on, and number two is the strength, the power of your mindfulness. And that's one of the reasons for many years. Oh, welcome, Venerable. Well, that's one of the reasons why that I try to enhance Buddhist meditation words by not just adding this word kindfulness, but also the powerful mindfulnesses. So I just mentioned this ordinary mindfulness, which most people have, and this powerful mindfulness, which when you experience that, you can see things so deeply, so powerfully. And superpower mindfulness. And that's when you see things so incredibly beautiful. And for the superpower mindfulness, that is something I first experienced on my first meditation retreat as a student, a lay person. When I did this retreat, I had a girlfriend at the time. I was really into the world, into listening to music, but I still had this fascination with meditation. Went to my first meditation retreat, and during that retreat we were allowed to go for a walk for 1 hour every morning before breakfast for some exercise. And this retreat was held in the student boarding houses in Cambridge. I knew the area very well, so when I went for a walk to the nearby Botanical Gardens, the back entrance in Bateman Street in Cambridge. Anyone know Cambridge? Yeah. Botanical Gardens. So when I went to those Botanical Gardens, the idea was to have some exercise. It took about 5 minutes or 4 minutes to get to the back gate, and as soon as I walked through that back gate, remember I'd been meditating for a while, I saw this clump of bamboo, and I was stunned by how beautiful it was. You know that in Chinese watercolors they always have bamboo featured in those watercolor paintings. One of the reasons is it's a grass, but nevertheless it's big, and just the way the colors change from the stem to the knots, you might call it, and just the way it bends just so gracefully under its own weight. It's a very, very beautiful plant. Simple, but graceful. And even the leaves are, unlike me, they're very, very thin and tapered to points. And that clump of bamboo I saw at the back entrance of the Cambridge Botanical Gardens was so stunning, so beautiful. You stared at it. It's one of the... in those days I also used to like romantic poetry. John Keats. A thing of beauty is a joy forever, he wrote, and I always was struck by those words. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. I could look at that clump of bamboo for minute after minute after minute, and my mind never got bored. But I did have a sense of, in those days, self-consciousness. I knew that if somebody saw this long-haired student looking at a piece of bamboo without moving, they'd soon call an ambulance and have me taken away. You don't do that in Britain. So I had enough sensibility to see there was a park bench close by. I sat down on that and stared at this clump of bamboo for about 50 minutes, never ever getting impatient with it or bored with it. Even in this morning breeze, the way it swayed in that morning breeze, the different colours and just how they interacted was I wouldn't say mind-boggling, but so satisfying. And I only had to leave because breakfast. So I walked back to have breakfast. The next morning I went back there again, did exactly the same. 8 mornings out of those 9 mornings I had no exercise at all, except just sitting down and looking at the most beautiful clump of bamboo I'd ever seen in the whole world. The 9th day I actually did do some exercise, walk by the river. But of course, once the retreat was over, no one explained to me what was happening. So after I finished the retreat, then I went back to university to do the socializing, studying, listening to lectures. And when I did that, I had a free afternoon. And I thought, what I will do is on that free afternoon, go and see the most beautiful clump of bamboo I'd ever seen in the whole world. And when I got to the back gate of the Botanical Gardens, there it was, this desiccated, dry sort of piece of bamboo. You don't grow bamboo in the cold weather of England. It's a plant in the wrong place. it did not look beautiful at all. It looked like it was struggling even just to survive. My beautiful piece of bamboo had gone, disappeared. Why? Because my mindfulness was now down to its ordinary level. My mindfulness was not powerful anymore. I was too busy doing so many things. It lost its power. And I've seen that so many times. I don't know. I know this is Hong Kong University. Can I disgust you with one of my really gross stories? People are nodding, okay. I warned you. But this is actually true. And there's one of my followers who works in CERN, in Geneva, the big atom smasher, discovering hadrons and stuff. But anyway, he said this was such an important story to him because it taught him about the nature of beauty. Does beauty lie in the eye of the beholder? Is beauty something which is conditioned into you? Or is the origin of beauty something else? And of course it's something else, and I'll tell you what it is. Teaching a retreat. If this is gross, Freddie, you can always sort of edit it out afterwards. I don't want to get Biff into trouble. I was teaching a retreat at Jhana Grove. That's the retreat centre we built opposite Bodhinyana Monastery. And when I teach, I also practice. So many opportunities there where I could sit quietly. And I'm a good meditator. I can get some nice states of meditation. And I just got into one really deep meditation and came out. And as I came out of the meditation, again I needed to go to the restroom to do what we call in Australia a number 2. You know what I mean? Okay. So I went into the toilet cubicle, sat down, and did my business, but I made a mistake. Before I flushed the toilet, I had a look. What I saw in that toilet bowl blew my mind. That was the most beautiful, honest piece of feces I've ever seen in my life. Now don't judge these things just what they're supposed to look like. There were all these different shades of brown, like darker brown, lighter brown, and the way they all interacted, like colour, it was like an artwork. And the way that all those little balls were actually stuck together was like it had been carved by a Michelangelo or a Rodin. It was gorgeous. And then when you come to the aroma, many of the scents, which SCENTS, which you can smell in life, they're kind of false. They're chemical. This was actually real. It spoke of real life, all human beings. It was rich. It was full, not manufactured, not plastic. The aroma of a piece of poo was something which was, And as I was looking at that in the toilet bowl, again, I'm not a crazy monk, honestly, because other people have experienced the same thing. It was actually delightful. It really was beautiful and fragrant. It's not always like that. Only when you've had a very beautiful meditation and you can see things which you're not supposed to see. You can smell the delicious fragrance which is not supposed to be there. But it was true, it was real. What I was experiencing was what we call superpower mindfulness. You see beauty, what other people think is ugly. And you see delight in what other people feel is unpleasant. Your mindfulness is changing the way you look at life. One of my other poets, which I like, he was also an artist, was Yeats. Anyway, part of his poem was to see a world in a grain of sand. See a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. That was by William Blake, 1600 to 1700 something. And when I read that, that sort of was important to me. To see a world in a grain of sand. Tiny little speck of sand. You can hold it in your hand and you can see so much in it. See a heaven in a wild flower. Wild flowers are tiny things. But if you look at them with strong mindfulness, they can become so delightful, so beautiful. Because they're small, they're humble, we pass by them. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand. What a beautiful line that was. Sometimes we think infinity, you have to go to a monastery or temple to find that. But to know it's right here in the palm of your hand right now. An eternity in an hour, which is usually the length of my talks. I hope they don't feel like they go on for eternity when I'm here, but it was just the only way you can actually make that rhyme. It means to be timeless. See beauty where you never expect to see it. See fragrance in what to others is unpleasant. This is not what you trained to do. This is just what happens when your mind gets power. When you get powerful mindfulness and superpower mindfulness. I'm talking in the university here. I wish there were more lecturers here to know how people don't just pass exams, but just how they can start to really enjoy their exams. Have fun with them. I never saw any of those students waiting outside to go into their exam room smiling. Why not? Because if you can smile, you get greater energy and more clarity of mind. You learn what superpower mindfulness is. You see more deeply into things. And the last little... upside down. The last little thing which I wanted to mention about this, the results. How many of you have relationship problems? Don't put your hand up, because otherwise your husband might be here or something. But why? Well, this is one of I don't know why this happens, but people often come and ask the monk to solve the problems. I've never been married. Almost 50 years as a monk, so why come and ask me? What do I know? A lot about but some of these, I've known the guy, the girl, of the two girls or two guys, I don't care. I've known them for such a long time. How come you don't like each other? I like both of you. You're really good people, you're kind people, you've got good hearts. Yeah, sometimes you say the wrong thing, but we all say the wrong thing from time to time. What's the big deal? It's just the way you perceive one another. It's not the reality of the person you're living with. We just get into this habit of not knowing how to see a world in a grain of sand, a beauty in a wild flower. Each one of you have that. Boy, girl, I don't care. You all have incredible good hearts inside. It's very rare to find people without those good hearts. Even when I test myself out, Many times I've been into prisons to teach. They're great places to check out whether your perceptions are accurate or not. You see people who've done terrible crimes. I don't know if any of you were on this retreat which I taught once. This is Ajahn over a 9-day retreat. We had trouble finding the cook for the retreat. The usual cook, their partner got cancer. So they had to look after their partner. They couldn't come and do the cooking for us. So I got this guy to do the cooking, and he was an excellent cook. Actually, I couldn't believe, things like pizza, he'd make the whole thing himself, from flour, and put it into a dough and bake it and put the stuff on top all by himself, and so many other dishes as well. He's one of the most brilliant cooks I've ever seen, and he worked all by himself. At the end of the retreat, when people gave thanks, he wasn't there. And I said, I can't tell you his name. His name was Carl. Where's Carl? We want to say thank you. He was such a wonderful cook and so kind to every one of us. Where is he? It's only the end of the retreat I told him what I was hiding. Carl is back in prison. I could manage to talk the authorities in giving him some work release for 9 days so he could cook for us. In prison, he was such a nice guy. What was he in there for? For rape. And that's when people really made their eyes wide. Ajahn Brahm, you allowed a rapist to come and cook for us for 9 days? And I said, he was a rapist once or twice, but that's not what he really is. He made a big, terrible mistake, which caused a lot of harm to people. But he's not a bad guy. I know him, I taught him, I trusted him, and he really lived up to that trust. And what I managed to do with that Dhamma teaching, say how easily we judge people. And when they saw him face to face first of all, and enjoyed his cooking, he did it all for free, not asking anything back in return, just the opportunity to serve. When they saw what a very kind, trustworthy person he was, that teaching changed the way that those retreatants looked at people who've done some terrible things in the past, but are not terrible people. And that was a brilliant teaching, and brilliant food. I still keep in touch with him. He's now married and living a very wonderful life. It's only because of drugs which caused him to forget what he was really doing and how his actions were affecting others. But nevertheless, that type of kindness really changed the way people looked at each other. Change the way you look at your partner in life. The way you change many of the ways you see things. The way you can see beauty in so many places where other people just can't see it. So in this day of kindfulness, please be kindful to the people you live with. They may have hurt you in the past. They may have treated you badly. But it does not mean that they are bad people. See the kindness in them. See the beauty in that grain of sand. See the heaven and little wild flowers which they show you. When you focus on that, I call that watering the flowers, not watering the weeds. And it's amazing what happens afterwards. Now, as usual, I usually speak for too long. Now, do you want a toilet break before we do some meditation? Or now, probably best to do the toilet break first. Because if we do the meditation first, you might go into the toilet and see the most beautiful number 2 you've ever created in the world. And that would waste a lot of time. So I'll have a toilet break for 10 minutes, and we come back and we'll do some meditation. Is that okay? And after the meditation, we can do a bit of Q&A. Yeah?
how we were feeling today.
Excellent. Couldn't be better.